Joining us now, Dana Milbank, a Washington Post columnist. He's with us from Washington, of course. And Steve Shepard is chief polling analyst at Politico, and he joins us from Arlington, Politico's headquarters out there. All right, guys, I wanted to ask you about Florida. Trump is up by 2 points, in the latest Bloomberg Politics poll. What's the broader state of this race in Florida? Dana?
That's actually a bit unusual, this poll. The average had Hillary Clinton up, I think, 4 points or so. Obviously, it's very close there. And the significance of Florida is, while Clinton has many paths to electoral victory, Trump has no path to electoral victory that doesn't include Florida. So if he doesn't win there, he doesn't win, period, which raises the question of why he's over opening up his hotel at the old post office in Washington, D.C., where he'll be lucky to get 5% of the popular vote.
Dana, I want to get to that in just a moment. But, Steve, I want to ask you about this lead. It's expanded 7 points among independent or likely voters in Florida. Obama won independents by 3 points in 2012. How important is this particular independent segment for Clinton?
Well, it can be really important in an election where both candidates are really galvanizing their respective bases. And one of the things that we noticed immediately, sort of a week or two ago, was that Hillary Clinton was winning more Democrats than Donald Trump was winning Republicans. There are some early indications that Republicans may be coming home to Donald Trump, particularly after the third debate last week. So that independent vote could be the tipping point in some of these states. I'd echo what Dana said, though. This is one poll in a series of others. It has Donald Trump up by 1 point in the initial matchup just against Hillary Clinton. It expands another point with the third-party candidates. Overall, most of the polls show Hillary Clinton ahead by 2, 3, 4 points. We have to wait and see if this is a sign of a change down there. I'd also add that roughly a quarter of Florida voters have already cast their ballots in this race because of early voting. And those numbers look more encouraging for Democrats thus far, even compared to 2012 when Barack Obama carried the state by a very narrow margin.
Yeah, in fact, Dana, that was something that Republicans were always better at doing, getting that early vote out in a state like Florida. As Steve is pointing out, Democrats have been able to sort of make up some of that lost ground that they may have lost in 2012. But I want to ask you, Dana, about the time that Donald Trump spent this morning, not, as you pointed out, in a battleground state, but opening up this new hotel in Washington. Yesterday, he added a stop at one of his Florida golf resorts. And he told the New York Times that these Trump-branded events are a way of showing the efficiencies he might bring to the government. I've seen his surrogates saying, look, Donald Trump builds things, and this is how he's going to rebuild the economy and rebuild America. But I wonder if voters are actually buying that argument. I mean, everybody knows that Donald Trump is a builder.
Well, I was at the event at the old post office this morning, and he said his theme for the day is 5 words, under budget and ahead of schedule, which turned out to actually be 6 words, but possibly he's deported one of the prepositions or the conjunction or something in there. But yes, he's trying to make the argument that, well, he runs good hotels. He'll run the country very well. He very explicitly said that. It does also, however, give the appearance that it looks highly unlikely that he's going to be elected on November 8th. It gives the impression he's trying to shore up his businesses, that he's using some of the spotlight that's on him now to bring a press corps of 300 people, dozens of cameras, to see them boast about their new hotel property, which I will freely admit is a very fine place.
Yeah, but Steve, and Dana, too, if you want to jump in on this, I mean, the reality is that there have been people who have in the past said that Donald Trump got into this race because he wanted to build up his brand. On the other hand, we've heard recent interviews that have just been released where he talks about wanting to win and that he's a fighter. And that's the most important thing to him is winning. He loves to fight. He actually even praised Hillary Clinton in the second debate, saying that one of the things, if he can find one thing to admire about her, is that he likes to fight. So do you think that, Dana, that this is a question of him really thinking, look, I may have lost this election, but I will win on the branding side? Or is this just a thing that he does and he knows that being there at this event is going to, at least with his supporters, prove that he's the kind of builder he wants to present himself as?
Well, if you listen to his voice and watch his body language, he seems subdued. He's talking quietly. He's not projecting the kind of winning candidate he had been earlier in the campaign. You know, he has, assuming he loses, or either way, really, he has a very difficult branding task ahead. We've seen a large fall off in people who are going to his hotels, his golf courses, other properties. The brand has a certain amount amount of a taint now, and it's unclear how quickly and what must be done to get that back. Of course, there's a bigger priority for the entire country right now, and there actually is a presidential election before we get on to worrying about Donald Trump's bottom line.
Steve, I want to ask you, though, meanwhile, he sent Governor Pence to campaign in Utah, a red state that might actually be in jeopardy for Trump. How do we get to this point?
Well, in Utah, you have a unique circumstance with Evan McMullin, the Utah-born Mormon Republican-turned-independent candidate, on the ballot there, and he is gaining traction in that one state, though he's only on the ballot in fewer than a dozen states across the country. I think, you know, as Dana mentioned, it's difficult to imagine any path for Donald Trump without 29 electoral votes out of Florida. Well, if he loses 6 electoral votes in Utah to Evan McMullin or to Hillary Clinton because the Republican vote is divided, that makes the path even more uphill. So Mike Pence is a much better messenger to the conservative, in a lot of cases, Mormon voters of Utah than Donald Trump is. They view Donald Trump very negatively, more negatively than they view Hillary Clinton, according to the polls, which is really astounding for such a Republican state. There's really no path without the 6 electoral votes there. He needs to win then another swing state on top of the ones that he already needs to run the table among to compete. So keeping those voters home, bringing those Republican voters home is absolutely essential. It is kind of crazy to think, though, 13 days before Election Day, we're talking about Republicans needing to campaign in Utah to hold those electoral votes.
Dana, let's turn to the challenges facing Hillary Clinton. She's dealing with a new WikiLeaks flap, an email that seems to contradict President Obama's account to CBS News some time ago that he first learned of the private server through media reports. Right now, you've got this email where Clinton aide Cheryl Mills writes, "We need to clean this up." What does that exchange reveal?
Well, it reveals that this situation with Hillary Clinton's emails would, in any sort of a normal election, have been a very serious detriment, if not a disqualifying issue. So and when you think about it, the headlines lately have been really pretty awful for Clinton between the WikiLeaks. Now, the question of how much attention we should be giving WikiLeaks, but okay, it's out there. And then as well, we have the very bad Obamacare headlines. It's really amazing that is not the dominant theme of this election in politics right now. She seems to have weathered the email scandal. Certainly this latest bit isn't helpful, does not seem to be changing the trajectory, though.
I want to ask you what's buzzing on social media. Donald Trump praised, of course, campaign ally Newt Gingrich in his interview last night, again, with Fox's Megyn Kelly. Let's listen to a bite from that.
As a media story, we don't get to say the 10 women are lying. We have to cover that story, sir.
Oh, sure. Okay, so it's worth 23 minutes of the 3 networks to cover that story. And Hillary Clinton, in a secret speech in Brazil to a bank that pays her $225,000, saying her dream is an open border where 600 million people could come to America. That's not worth covering.
That is worth covering.
You want to go back through the tapes of your show recently? You are fascinated with sex, and you don't care about public policy.
Me?
Now, that's
really?
what I get out of watching you tonight.
You know what, Mr. Speaker? I'm not fascinated by sex, but I am fascinated by the protection of women and understanding what we're getting in the Oval Office.
Attacking the media when it doesn't work for you, Dana.
And their biggest media ally, the biggest media ally of the campaign, Fox. I mean, what do you guys make of that?
Well, look, it's the same thing we've seen from the Trump campaign all along, and that is rally the base, get them out. Everybody in Donald Trump's base hates the media in all forms, a lot of them even Fox News, and he's been fighting with Megyn Kelly from the very beginning. Hard to see how this really helps the gender gap that is troubling Donald Trump.
Yeah, many people wondered that. Dana Milbank from the Washington Post and Steve Shepard from Politico, thank you both for joining us.
My pleasure.